The international medical charity Doctors Without Borders is suspending its mission in the Libyan city of Misrata because of torture carried out in detention centres there. They say they repeatedly treated patients who'd been suffering under interrogation. Well, also the UN's concerned about the conditions in which some 8,500 people are being held in the country, where several detainees have reportedly died. Let's get up to speed on this and talk to political analyst Dan Glazebrook, get his thoughts. He's joining us live from London there. Hi, Dan. Libyan officials have repeatedly promised, haven't they, to tackle the abuses, which is said to be staining Libya's record of abuse. Surely not the new page that many had been hoping for in a new country, is it?
Well, actually, it is new. It is new, really, because people have an image sometimes of Gaddafi's regime of this horrible kind of, den of torture and killings. But I've actually been scouring through the Human Rights Watch reports of the 5 years leading up to the rebellion of February last year. In that whole 5-year period, there was 3 possible deaths in custody that Human Rights Watch wanted investigated. Now, if you consider in Britain, in August alone of last month, we had 4 deaths in custodies, including an outright execution of Mark Duggan and 2 deaths by beating to death by the police, Jacob Michaels and Dale Burns. So, if the British police committed more human rights abuses in a single month last year than the Gaddafi regime in 5 years. So actually this is new, but it's not new since the fall of Sirte or the fall of Gaddafi. It started with the very beginning of the rebellion, the very beginning of the insurrection. The second day of the rebellion, on 18th of February, 50 African migrants were rounded up, locked in a detention center and burnt to death by the rebels. And this really set the tone, and this kind of behavior by the rebels, now the so-called government, has continued ever since.
Yeah, you say down the so-called government there, so, OK, allegedly with blood on the hands of the new government, what kind of signal is the NTC sending to the West that, of course, supported the country's transition to democracy?
Well, it's really the signals that matter, the signals the West sends to the NTC. The West's in control of the NTC. It installed them in power. They understand that. They don't have popular support. It's NATO support that put them into power and maintains them in power. So the NTC, they've expressed their support for this kind of behavior. They've given out mixed messages. When the town of Tawaga was ethnically cleansed of all 10,000 of its black residents last year, the then president of the NTC, Mahmoud Jibril, he actually said, he was questioned about it, and he said, well, what happens to the people of Tawaga is the business of the people of Misrata. It's no one else's business. That was given the green light for the torture and the execution that we're seeing now, but actually has been continuous since the very start of the uprising.
We've all been witnessing in the last couple of days renewed clashes between NTC forces and former regime supporters in Libya. Now we're getting these renewed reports as well about these horrendous cases of abuse. If they are true, the idea of a united Libya seems as far away as ever, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is part of the strategy of the West. Divide and rule is the oldest imperial trick in the book. And this is exactly what they're implying. I mean, if you look, the destabilization strategy that they're employing is very precise, and they followed it very precisely in Afghanistan and Iraq as well. What do? First of all, they destroy completely the existing state apparatus, right? Produce total chaos. Then, now this is the interesting part, they ban from the electoral process the biggest, most popular and most organized political grouping in the country. They did this in Iraq with de-Baathification. They did this in Afghanistan, continuing to this day to deny any meaningful part to the Taliban in the formal political process. And now they're doing it in Libya. Just recently, the NTC announced, no doubt at the prompting of his Western paymasters, that the new electoral law would be, the Gaddafi loyalists, so-called, would be barred from taking part in the election. So this is a clear recipe for civil war. If you're banning the most organized, most popular grouping in a country from participation in the formal political process, what else are they going to do but influence it by force of arms? And this is exactly what we're seeing. But this is not new. Again, this is what they've done in Iraq and Afghanistan. They've created deliberately the conditions for civil war because they're scared of these countries, which are resource-rich countries, at least in the case of Iraq and Libya. They're scared of them being independent countries that are able to have some regional influence in the world. Sorry, yeah. Yeah,
I was going to say, sorry, we're out of time, I'm afraid, Dan, but thanks ever so much for your thoughts. Dan Glazebrook there from London.